Welcome, Wargamers, to the haunted streets of Har Kuron, because today we are taking a look at that little lore packet that came in Games Workshop's newest battle set, I don't really know what else to call it, Arena of Shades. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, every once in a while Games Workshop will release these like army boxes where it's like two factions. Usually there's just a unique hero for each side, and typically they're in support of battle tomes that are about to be dropped. In this case, the Nighthaunt versus the Daughters of Khaine. A huge thank you to Games Workshop for sending me one in advance. I don't play either of these armies, but I really wanted, first of all, the little mini rulebook that comes with it, as well as the lore packet, which we're going to be talking about today. I do have a sister video to this one, kind of unboxing it and just kind of going through what the contents are, but to be perfectly honest, unboxing videos I think are pretty boring, so let's talk about some story. Our story begins, much like many Age of Sigmar stories begin, with Nagash sitting and brooding, Nagash being the god of undeath in this setting. And nothing puts, a sour face on him more than people stealing the souls that are rightfully his. And there's a lot of ways that happens in the Age of Sigmar setting, whether it's the souls from the old world that the elven gods pull out of Slaanesh to form their children and redo, essentially, the elven race. It could be Sigmar himself taking the best and the brightest heroes from amongst the realms and forging them into Stormcast Eternals. Or the Idoneth Deepkin, who go around as pirates coming up from the shore, harvesting a bunch of souls, bringing them home to kind of sustain their young, and therefore perpetuate their race. There are, of course, other factions that have reasons to mess with souls, but what I'm getting at is there's a lot of people who Nagash has on his list. Soul thieves is what he calls them. And he decides, you know what, let's do something about this. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that this story, I feel, does a great job of putting Nagash in the context of the current timeline. If you're not familiar, the Broken Realms campaign series, which just finished the tail end of last year, saw Nagash get laid low by Teclis and a few other people from his realm. That was in the book Broken Realms Teclis. Essentially, after the Necroquake, all this stuff, Teclis was like, we're going to put Nagash in his place, so it was the ultimate battle of the nerds. Teclis, kind of the god of light and hish, and very magic-focused, as well as Nagash, god of undeath, also super magic-focused. Went toe-to-toe in hish, and ultimately, Nagash was struck down. Now, at the end of that story, it was a little bit unclear, like, well, what actually happened to Nagash? Because the last time we saw him get struck down, it was right at the brink of the Age of Chaos, and he was just out of the story for hundreds of years. So it's like, well, is he like gone? Like, what's he doing? Well, this story gives us some insight. No, he was not knocked out in the same way as when Archaon took him out, for example, in the Age of Chaos. Instead, he's just in a severely weakened state. The kind of quake that came out of Shyish that kind of put death magic all over the place has been largely reversed by Alariel, which took place at the beginning of Broken Realms Kragnos. And so he's still the god of death, but his power is now much more contained. It's limited to Shyish, or wherever he decides to go personally. But it does emphasize he is weakened. And in this weakened state, he gets very, shall we say, grouchy. And grouchy people want to get revenge on those who have wronged them. In this case, he wants to go soul thief hunting. So we're going to put a pause. That's the Nagash side of the story. We're going to look over at other events that happened during the Broken Realms series. At the top of the campaign, Morathi caused what is essentially a civil war in the city of Anvilgard, took it over, made it a Daughters of Khaine like hub, and called it Har Kuron. A crazy, awesome story that saw everything from cogforts going wild and trying to attack all kinds of elves, a Stormkeep taken without a single Stormcast being killed so that they wouldn't alert Sigmar. Like, just ridiculous things that were really fun to read. And with this, Morathi asserted herself as, first of all, a deity-level character, which she now is, and the sole owner and defender of Har Kuron, her new home that she has carved out of the realms. Well, in that story, to achieve that, she got the help of the Idoneth Deepkin. They were all part of her plan. She needed an artifact from the Deepkin, she went in and stole it. They went to go bring her to task, thinking she was an enemy, like trying to steal from them, and instead she hands them back the artifact and makes them an offer. Work for me, I'll give you all the souls that you can handle. This then allows her to go move and take over Har Kuron, now that she is super powerful and has some good allies. Okay, unpause. Nagash is sitting there thinking about the world's events that have happened as of recent and what things he has the ability to affect. He's too weak to go toe-to-toe with Teclis again, of course. Most of the Ossiarch Bone Reapers are out crusading, but it was a good thing that he unleashed them. His power has receded back to Shyish, and there's not a ton of order settlements there. There's a few, but not a ton. But one thing gets him stewing. It is this idea that souls were used as payment for Morathi to take the city of Anvilgard. That is to say, it is the idea that elves are so haughty as to think that the resource that belongs to him and only him can be used for an exchange of goods and services. It's like, no. Those are mine. And so the question becomes, how do we get retribution? Well, he doesn't know where the elves are of the Deepkin. They're just scattered all across the oceans in the hidden depths. He found one enclave in Shyish only because the Skaven accidentally drained an ocean. True story, it was amazing, I love it. But he can't find them, but hey, he does know where Har Kuron is. It's in Akshi. He knows how to get there, and he wants to get a revenge, right? He wants to do something to prove to them, this is not a currency that you can use. These are mine, and they matter when it comes to souls. And so, Nagash pulls out his Rolodex of all the heroes that he knows, and he starts flipping through. Now here's the issue. He doesn't want to send the Mortarchs, which are his most powerful and loyal servants, right? You got Lady Olander, Catacros is busy in the 8 points, Neferata, Manfred, Arcan the Black, doesn't want to send any of them. Specifically, because he doesn't want them to know that he is weakened. Like, to bring them into this plan would require him to be like, I need you to go because I can't on some level. Or, if he wanted to dominate their minds to control them, which he can do, we learned that in the Rumgate Wars, he can, like, basically take over the mind of Manfred or Neferata if he wants to. Well, he can't do that outside of Shyish at the moment. So, where does he find a warrior who would do things for him without question, but then also have the knowledge of, this is not the time to try and usurp Nagash? Who could that be? And so, like I said, going through his little Rolodex, he finds one. It is Kurdos Valentian, the Craven King. A character we covered in depth during my Nighthaunt lore. You can go ahead and check that out. But essentially, he is a dangerous, treacherous betrayer of a man who only seeks the power of the throne for himself. He's a crummy dude, a politicker. He does all these kinds of things. And so Nagash is actually pretty okay with that. He's like, I'm super into that vibe. But the problem is, in life, Kurdos worshipped Sigmar. And so his eternal punishment was to serve Nagash instead of Sigmar, and to be married to the ruler, meaning Lady Olander, and never get to rule himself. It's this eternal thing where he's constantly like right at the cusp of getting everything he ever wanted, being in charge, being a king, but he'll never, ever actually achieve it, which is just mean. And so he summons Kurdos Valentian and basically offers him this chance. Now, on the flip side, looking from Kurdos' perspective, he's getting called out of the bullpen, right? This is his moment. Nagash has given me an opportunity, and he's a character who doesn't give opportunities frequently to impress him. He's given me a mission. I need to go out there. I need to go take Har Kuron and have the deeds of my might and my trustworthiness relayed to Nagash so that I can increase my position. Again, in Afterlife, he is just as conniving and kind of like social climby as much as he possibly can. I mean, and to be fair, Nagash is betting on this because it means he's going to do a good job, or he's going to be punished and he knows the stakes. So it's actually a good deal for both of them. And actually, I really like that as an idea of like why Nagash would bother with this like secondary level of command of the Nighthaunt. It's like, because this guy is looking for an opportunity to improve his station, and that's exactly what Nagash needs. Someone who's not already on the level to question him, but just right below that, where you're super strong and super capable, but not quite enough to be a problem, I mean. And so, that is the mission. Send Kurdos Valentian and his own procession over there to Har Kuron and reap a toll. Now, what's interesting to point out here is that there's not actually a conquest plan in place. Like, Kurdos is not going to take the city. He doesn't care about it. Nagash doesn't need more real estate. He's already got a whole realm. Instead, the idea is you're going to reclaim the souls that were paid to the Idoneth, meaning nobody got out of this for free. We're going to take our due. I can't find the Idoneth Deepkin, but, let's say you paid them 1,000 souls. I'm going to take 1,000 souls from Har Kuron. You know what? Forget it. Make it 2,000. We're going to, have the taxes paid too. And that's an interesting, I guess, kind of setup for battle, because the idea is like he doesn't want to claim anything. They're not trying to hold anything. It makes their objectives very different when one side wants to defend the city they own and the other just wants to kill everybody. Does not care in the least about the city. And so, Kurdos comes up with what he believes is a cunning plan. Since Anvilgard fell and Har Kuron was erected, meaning the city changed hands from Sigmar to Morathi, the Daughters of Khaine have built their favorite thing, which is several gladiatorial pits. Because the Daughters of Khaine's whole life is built upon combat prowess and agility and stuff, their entertainment is watching people fight in the arena, fighting in the arena themselves, or sharpening their skills in combat by practicing in the arena. Like, it's just a big deal. The rest of Har Kuron, meaning there's still human remnants, there's still all kinds of elves that aren't Daughters of Khaine, well, they just have fun watching, betting, all this kinds of stuff. Like, it's a very, seedy underbelly kind of a city, and bloodsport just kind of plays into that. And so Kurdos' plan is, wait until they have this really big gladiatorial event going on, and then we'll attack basically from under the city, do a little sneaky ghost attack, and essentially kind of take as many souls as you can while the place is undefended, unready, and you're not even going to have to go into the major hubs that are the arenas, right? Leave them concentrated, full of people, kill everybody else, because again, you're not trying to take anything. It's not like you're going to besiege the gladiatorial arena. You don't care about it. And then, once the Daughters of Khaine understand what's happening and they start trickling out of the gladiatorial pits, boom, you can ambush them, knowing that you've pretty much killed a bunch of the civilians already. Which, to be honest, is not a bad plan. Wait until everyone's distracted, get into a good position, and then snap the trap. Like, that makes perfect sense. And so, one particular night when the gladiatorial pits were in full swing, we're introduced to a named character who is a gladiatrix, I should say. That's sort of the new hero you get for the Daughters of Khaine. She's in there in the pit, just fighting off all kinds of monsters. And all of a sudden, a weird fog starts to descend upon the city. All of the graves start to tremble. Anything that has chains or hourglasses begins to shake or erupt violently. Anyone who practices any form of death magic, all of a sudden their magic gets amplified and they might accidentally set themselves on fire or something. It's just weird stuff starts going down, and the Nighthaunt start creeping up from underneath the city. So you have Kurdos Valentian. He has his little honor guard of the new Nighthaunt with crossbows, just to kind of act as a last shield buffer so no one gets to him. But you also have a new unit called the Scriptor Mortis. Now, this guy, to be very simple, his job is to record things and relay them to Nagash. Essentially, he's writing the epic book of deeds on how Nagash changed the realms from this terrible place into this beautiful necrotopia. Like, he's literally a remembrancer of history. It's just the history that he's currently writing of turning the whole place into an undead nightmare. Well, Kurdos needs somebody who can relay to Nagash how great Kurdos is, because he wants to, again, use this to social climb, get up to that next tier of power and influence. And it wouldn't do for, him to win the battle, but no one to talk about it or remember it. So he brings one of these Scriptor Mortis guys. He's like, listen, you're going to be in charge of a small contingent. You can do whatever you like, but all of your reports need to focus on the fact that Kurdos Valentian, the Craven King, was the one who made this possible. I mean, the Scriptor Mortis is like, I'll record what actually happens, and if we win, you get credit because you did it. And that's, I'm going to pause there because that's kind of where the actual story elements end. Because again, this is a set of missions that come with a box that's trying to tell a very specific story, and it lets you as the players tell that story. That's why the main hero is the Scriptor Mortis. We have the Blade Guys Revenants, Miramorn Banshees, like all the cool things from Nighthaunt. Basically, it's a small detachment. Well, I should say the contents of this box represent a small detachment of the Nighthaunt army and a specific, set of Daughters of Khaine that kind of cobbled together as everything was going crazy. Because I was reading the lore and I was like, well, if Kurdos is in charge of everything, why isn't he in this box? But the truth is, it's a massive war front, and this box specifically focuses on the contingent that is with the Scriptor Mortis. Now, the bits that we do get that are canon, from the little flavor text that come before each mission, it's made very clear that the initial Nighthaunt assault is very effective. They are just absolutely raking in souls. The Spirit Torments are there just like going full Kirby, just sucking everything in around them. There's all kinds of mayhem and mischief. There's residents from buildings who are just hurling anything that they have in their homes at the Nighthaunt, trying to fight back in some way. However, things don't go perfectly for the Nighthaunt. Phase 1 of the plan of surprise them when everyone's in the arena totally works. The thing that kind of backfires though is that the Daughters of Khaine realize that something is wrong and start pouring into the streets a little bit faster than what Kurdos and the Scriptor Mortis were expecting. So they thought they were going to have all this time, to reap this tally of souls from the civilians, and the truth is they didn't get nearly as much time as they were anticipating. Now, we know from the missions that one of the gladiatrix who was fighting in the pit, that's the new hero we get for the Daughters of Khaine, she goes out and leads a small group trying to pick the best fights that they can. Kind of a cut the head off the snake kind of scenario. At some point, they end up fighting underground, and their actual second mission for this box set has them fighting in an underground cavern, and I thought it was really cool because there's rules for Nighthaunt not being able to go through things or fly over particular items, command abilities that allow you to pass through them. It's a very unique dynamic to it. But it's an underground fight, and then the last battle has no resolution because you and I, as players, are trying to resolve it. And that's it for the story, but I'll tell you what, let's talk about why this is cool and kind of what I think the resolution we can walk away from is. So as far as what I think actually happens after this box set, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Kurdos Valentian, he took a minor victory. Let's call it that. Let's call it a minor victory. We'll use game terms. In that he was sent to take a whole bunch of souls, and it was very well established that he did that indeed. He did do an immense amount of damage. I'm sure Nagash would have wanted to see the entire city run down, but that's a tall ask. If you're not going to bring in any heavy hitters like the Mortarks or the Ossiarch Bone Reapers or anything like that. So if his mission was just to go cause mayhem and take a bunch of souls home, good, mission accomplished, we got him. For the Daughters of Khaine, I have no doubt that Har Kuron stands, right? It's a huge centerpiece of narrative, and it's a really important one too. So I just feel there's no way that they already knocked that off the, chopping block. If Morathi just took the city, she's not going to lose it in a box set that's limited release. But that being said, as these stories can build off of one another, it could be very important and relevant that the city has been depleted of a lot of its civilian population. Because that matters a lot. When you think about, it used to be Anvilgard, a place where many, many people, average folks, fishermen, all that stuff lived. Yes, a lot of them were shady. There was an immense amount of crime, but it was still a city because it had citizenry. Well, what happens if you just remove a massive population? Well, the pie chart of how much of your place is militaristic versus residential changes dramatically. And so I could easily see Har Kuron, getting to my point, becoming a much more of a deep fortification and military state rather than a city that also facilitates the Daughters of Khaine quite a bit. And the reason I think, I give Kurdos the minor victory is that I don't think he would be punished for achieving the goal being get some souls. I just also don't think that Nagash was necessarily dazzled enough to do anything positive for him. I improve his station whatsoever. I asked for a thing, you did the thing, good, you did the thing I asked, you are at or near expectation. Now, as far as why is the story cool, well, it's cool because when you read it, there are little nods to what happened in the Broken Realm series. They mention a busted up cog fort outside the city. Well, that was a huge centerpiece thing during the actual campaign. or broken down buildings and specific bars. Like all of those things were name dropped during the Broken Realm series. So it was nice. It kind of felt very firmly in Har Kuron, which is awesome. I liked Kurdos Valentian, the Craven King, having some meaning to himself. Like, for the longest time, I mean, when the first Nighthaunt book dropped, there was a lot of named characters, but not a lot of character behind them, if you know what I mean. Like, they were like, oh yeah, this person is super evil and super bad. Okay, well, by the time you get to the fourth character and or unit that says, this guy's the meanest and the baddest, you stop caring. You become a little numb. But when you instead pluck out named characters and give them a purpose, like Nagash, the god of death, rings your phone and is like, bruh, I need ya. That's a story. That's where I get to see Kurdos try his best. And he did. I mean, he set up a little trap. You know, he underestimated his enemy, but I feel like the other Mortarchs have done that or worse. And overall, he proved himself to be exactly what he is, which is an effective tool for Nagash. So anytime a little bit of story is added to these named characters, just to give them a little bit more of something to do, so we're not just constantly being spoon-fed, he's the evilest, he's the meanest, he's the angriest, I'm here for it. And also it lets us see what Har Kuron has become. I mean, it's still a wretched hive of scum and villainy, but now they've erected all these kinds of arenas and blood pits, and it's become much more of a spectacle. And the place has changed. I mean, honestly, I would really love to see like supplements come for Soulbound, the AOS role-playing game by Cubicle 7, that's what it is. But yeah, I would love those things because it's such a fascinating idea to me. That city alone, just what it's been through since the beginning of Age of Sigmar, makes it very like fertile ground for cool storytelling. I just don't think that that's been fully reached yet. I mean, it was great to see in Broken Realms Kragnos, but I mean, I'm talking specifically about Har Kuron. Like, after those events, I would love to see what the city looks like. We have some idea because there is an Anvil Guard thing for Soulbound, like I mentioned, but again, that's all pre, Civil War / taking over by Morathi. So getting a sense of how it's changed is what I'm getting at. All in all, for being just a small little couple of paragraphs that blurb into new units, I thought it was a fun little read. Is it enough to make a Black Library novel off of? I mean, maybe if you had some strong character writing, but the plot overall is not what I would call, like, riveting. But it gives us some great insights into what's going on with a character that doesn't get a whole lot of love, Kurdos, and a city that was just recently the center of a lot of narrative action, and we get a glimpse as to how it's doing, meaning Har Kuron. And if that was all it's trying to do, which I think it is, mission accomplished. So let me ask you this, friends. Are you going to be grabbing the Arena of Shades box? If so, which faction are you excited about? Let me know in the comments down below. I will respond to you there. Thank you all so much for watching and listening, and I cannot wait to talk to you next time. Happy wargaming.